it's still thinking about going live on Instagram. It always takes a minute. There we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Helping Managers Win. And I am Byron, and that handsome mug in front of you right now with his glasses, that is Tom Rosenak. So I'm going to say hi, Tom.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever this meets you.
So we have been, Tom and I really we've enjoyed each other. We enjoy connecting. We enjoy discussing because we have a lot of things in common besides Optimax Talent. And he and I are both the co-founders of Optimax Talent. And Optimax Talent is, why don't you share that? Why does Optimax Talent exist?
Optimax Talent is a joint venture, the brainchild of Byron Low, and we exist because we know that each person is unique, and yet we're called to work together. We work on teams, we work in organizations, so we want to ask, how can we work better together? And we want to ask it in the one-to-one level, Byron and Tom, on the team level, all of our business partners, and on the organizational level, creating a culture of people working better together with shared value, all the way to the societal level. How can we work better together?
And we really believe that the predictive index is such a phenomenal tool for that very thing, to help us work better together. And the reason why Tom and I are doing this whole thing on helping managers win is we believe it actually came from a report that Predictive Index did back in the fall of 2023. But managers are crucial. And I do love bridges. I mean, I have an engineering background, and I love almost everything about a bridge. And this, I think, is the best bridge in the world. And the thing is that managers are like bridges, because we in business, and we don't have a lot of managers in Optimax Talent. It's just Tom and I, and we have other people that are kind of on our bench that wear our jersey occasionally. But we know from experience working with companies, big, massive companies, that you take out a manager, you remove them from the company, and in a lot of even where this bridge is located in California, and that's actually in San Francisco, but not too far away from San Francisco is an area called Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley has really struggled because I think they've removed a lot of those managers, and I think they've learned that when you take out those folks that have those relationships and also know the work, their businesses have suffered as a result of that. And now they're trying to figure out how to replace people with artificial intelligence. And we'll see how well that works. But the bottom line is, we believe that managers are crucial. And we want to show you today just some little bits of help, of resourcefulness. And we're trying to be helpful in how we believe we can help you help managers win. Any thoughts, Tom?
Yeah, I want to make a comment about that beautiful picture. We also have a graphic we use on our roadmap for talent optimization, which any of you are welcome to download if you go to our site. But it has one visual that's a picture of the managers in a sandwich squeezed. And so these are two different pictures of the same person, and we've both felt both of those. So this is a beautiful, well-designed alignment of two different areas, and you can get relatively seamlessly from point A to point B, depending on the traffic. The other is a picture, and it's the same person, of someone squeezed. They say it like this: I'm always in the middle. And there it is. There's your manager. And it's really the same thing, but a different approach. Is people on the executive team says, well, Schmedley will do it. And the team people are saying, Schmedley, why aren't you doing this? And they're the in-between, the middleman or woman between two opposing forces, and they feel squeezed. We want less of that and more of the bridge. and Optimax Talent is dedicated to help to see the path so that you can be a meaningful conduit between different levels of the organization, and helping the person on the right develop her skills to become a better contributor and to have a career path, and then helping the people in the other direction to get their goals met with less interference, more independence, more autonomy. And we do this through communication with self and with others. So both pictures can be true and sometimes at the same time, but let's build bridges. Let's not squeeze the sandwich.
Really well said. So we believe that in order for us to do our job and to help you help managers win, we believe part of that message is that we need to say to you on a regular basis, which we have for every single week since the first of the year, that your managers, they need support. They need a multiple of support, but we're thinking about support from above and outside resource support in order for them to be the best manager that they can be. Any thoughts, Tom?
I'm tracking with you well.
And then we believe that they need resources, and this is where this is what we believe. Okay, so you can take this or leave it, but we believe that they need resources, and that's going to help them understand more about themselves. It's like what Tom said just a second ago, but it really begins with that self-awareness. They understand themselves, and then they can understand other people. Then they can empower other people and empower themselves in their work. So today, Tom is going to kind of walk us through some things. There's a couple things we're going to talk about, but primarily it's this idea of a relationship strategy. So what exactly is that, Tom?
So we keep our definition of strategy simple, which is, what are you counting on to win? So the first thing we need to do is define a win, and it has to be win-win or no deal. So there's some negotiation in the win. But before you negotiate at the tactical level, it's a good idea to have a conversation. How can we work better together? And what you're seeing here is the predictive index behavioral pattern. And any of you in fewer than 6 minutes can get your name and a pattern. And it asks you 2 questions. The first being, how would you like the world of work to be? How do you see yourself best in the world? So it's strength based and experiential together. And then the second question is, how do you think either your boss, the team, or the work itself, or even your inner brats expect you to be? And so without any knowledge of this at all, and we'd be delighted if you were interested in deep diving, we'll take you there. But for today, anybody can look at this and can notice. So A is about the drive to exert influence on people and events. And you notice that Byron, and by the way, the further from the midpoint, the more predictable, that's why it's called predictive index, that will show up in behavior. So Tom Rosenak's A is slightly beneath the midpoint. So it's going to show up, but not as predictable, and you might not see it because it has a situational component. But if you notice Byron, he's where 1 sigma is moderately high, 2 sigmas is very high, and he's almost to extremely high in A. And then you go to B, and we have a flip there. Byron's below the midpoint, but close enough. So he has energy of extroversion, but I've just got a ton of energy of extroversion. And so if we just take those 2 to start with, so we don't turn this into a lecture, what are some behaviors that might show up differently for Byron than for Tom? Byron, you want to give them some clues there?
Yeah. So the idea of how we can work better together is by first we need to understand ourselves and understand our teammate here. Like Tom is my teammate. And something happened this week that we were going to kind of share a story, especially as it pertains to the A, really primarily the A. There are other things that were contributing to that as well, but the A.
Well, I would say the C, which we haven't talked about The C too, the pace would be part of it.
Yeah, but you and I share a relatively similar pace, which is that, again, the C is the data point of, we have this drive for stability and um, and kind of the idea of working at a stable pace, or a pace that is a little bit faster and a little more spontaneity. Both Tom and I share that intensity of drive in the because it's called patience, but patience is, in many ways, patience is kind of it can be a little confusing, because if you come from any kind of faith in North America, if you come from a Judeo-Christian background, you hear patience and you think of virtue. That's not what it's talking about. It's not talking about the Judeo-Christian virtue of patience. It's talking about patience in the sense of in some ways, people who have a high amount, anything to the right of the little black triangle is considered high. If you have a high amount of patience, you're considered steady. If you have a low amount of patience, with both Tom and I both have low amount of patience, anything to the left of the black triangle, you're considered driving. And driving would be the same as intense, and steady would be the same as someone who is kind of in some ways accommodating, in some ways kind of warm, kind of friendly. People who have higher C's tend to be that. They tend to be a little more warmer, where people who have a really, really, really low left to the black triangle is considered low with driving, then they would be considered almost cool or aloof. The bottom line is that in our interaction on, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, this really was, and it was maybe a little bit of the C of the patients, but I think it was primarily an issue of the A. You want to share the story, Tom?
Well, I agree. It was more the A, and I didn't mean to derail the way that you were telling that. But we talk about predictability, and we also talk about situational, and we're both lower in C, which Byron just described. So usually that's not an issue. But in this situation, we need to know that your C was triggered as well as your A. And I'll quote you, and then you can share more of the story. What Byron said is, I need to drive. And we were working on a presentation in the future, and it had a sense of urgency, which is why I brought it aside. So situationally, he was itching to move, and he wanted to take the wheel. Is that accurate, Byron?
Yeah, and I think that there are times when the ABCDs can share traits. So
Yep.
like if you have someone who has a very, very high, anything to the right of the black triangle, high C, and low A, anything to the left of the black triangle is considered low, they're going to have this warmth to them. Someone who is higher C and lower A, because they're going to be collaborative, and they're also going to be steady. That is a very warm human being. But if you have someone who has a high A and then high in the right of the black triangle, high A, dominant, and then low C, left of the black triangle, is driving, intense. Both of those traits share this. It's like a drum. And can you hear that, Tom?
I do hear it.
That's what I feel every single moment of my life, and it doesn't go away. I mean, I also happen to have tinnitus, if you know what that is. I mean, I have this ringing in my ear that it never goes away, but it's different. But this drumming, this beat, and what it says to me, it says go, 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 and it never stops. So when Tom actually had, it was I think it was his Zoom, and he was sharing something. He was trying to create something in PowerPoint, and I'm better at PowerPoint than Tom. And I'm faster at PowerPoint than Tom. And I was watching Tom trying to do things in PowerPoint with our shared presentation. And I was like, and I even said it. I shouldn't have said it, but I thought it and I said it. I said, this is painful. And
you did.
What was painful was it was just so slow. And that again, Tom also has an aspect of that driving, but that's also very much counterbalanced between not only his A, but also his B. Tom might think something like, oh, this is going slowly. But what Tom probably wouldn't do is say it out loud, because he understands, because he has everything about Tom. If it had to be, and we're not assessments, we're not assessment results, we're not a reference profile. But Tom Rosenak is all about people. And that's also, when I look at his profile, that's the first thing I see. It's people, people, people. So even though he has this intensity, this driving, just like I do, maybe not as loud, maybe it's a little softer, maybe it's a little slower. But what Tom has is he has this people first orientation that puts my people orientation to shame. Any thoughts, Tom?
Well, I want to exalt you in that. Let's go back to C. Byron, and this is an important point. Byron has this drumbeat, go, go, go. But he also said patience is a virtue. And many times Byron will have that inner drum beating, but out of respect and also out of wanting to be open, he will often not behave. Remember, we said under the surface is what it's attached to. The behavior is in the surface. And early on, I didn't even know that drum was beating. But now I can be humorous about it. When he said, I need to drive, I said with no malice, no sarcasm, and a smile, of course you do. And it made sense. So I turned over the controls, and I didn't even know you could do that on Zoom. So he taught me a new thing, that I knew you could share the screen, but I didn't know he could run my PowerPoint from it. The point is that it's only situational that you will see Byron's intense drive, because he has a virtue called patience, and he doesn't want to always be a fire hose. But if we work better together, then my challenge is to ask, how important is you right now? And is it to you right now? And in that case, it was crucial that he take over. And it was in both of our interests. And at that point, our drives no longer matter. It pointed to what we needed to do. But we could get to it more quickly than just saying, he's being this and she's being that. This is the drive. And sometimes Byron needs to ask for what he needs. I want to drive. And sometimes he has to flex to what I need. And it should never be PowerPoint driving. He should always drive. But there are other areas where sometimes him flexing to me driving, because I have a different perspective that may be what the situation needs. But if you don't understand that, you can't make those decisions. And you can't share the decision. So Byron would make his decision, I would make our decision, and we both hope it works out. And then we clear up misunderstanding. We have the ability, because of this and other things, to make decisions that are in the interest of both, as well as the interest of the situation. And that's called leading from strength.
Well, I love that, Tom. And I do believe that it's important to kind of recognize what you just said earlier, or intimated earlier, about the story we tell ourselves. So let's just pretend that we didn't know each other, and that was our first meeting. And I blurt, and I blurted, man, this is painful. And there's no context, there's no understanding. And this happens every single day all over the world. And they don't have the tool. They don't have the data. And what ends up happening is that Tom all of a sudden starts to tell a story to himself that he believes about Byron. And it could be situationally accurate. Oh man, he's a jerk. But the challenge with that is you don't know if he's a jerk. What you're experiencing is something that is actually a need that needs to surface. A need has to surface. And it's going to surface in the form of behavior. And if somehow Tom, obviously now Tom and I work together, Tom knows about the drum. He knows about that intensity. That doesn't forgive the fact of what I said. I shouldn't have said what I said. But the point is that the story that we tell ourselves, about our colleagues, is often wrong. And we need to take a step back. And where we start is we start with understanding ourselves. We increase our own self-awareness. And hopefully we have a tool like the Predictive Index. And then we can start to understand our team. And that's going to help us become and be better leaders. Any thoughts, Tom? Especially
yeah, and I would like to add to, it's often wrong, and it's coming from our understanding our assumption, our perception, and the other person isn't really in the mix. And if two people or a whole team of people is operating from that, it is poorly informed, which means that the decisions made are poorly considered. So we start with awareness of self, awareness of others, and then we position work differently. Most work is we have work to be done, let's throw warm bodies at it.
Hmm.
And I get nodding heads from human resources professionals and team leads. They go, oh, that's true. We have this, we've decided to do it. And Nancy and the people are all, it's messy business because we got to get the work done. Instead of we actually save time as well as headaches. If we say, okay, we have the goal. Are we aligned? What work does this suggest? Who and how should do it? Maybe somebody has to do it temporarily as a warm body, but she knows that's not going to be permanent. And we work together strategically by defining wins at every level: individual, team, enterprise, cross-functional, whatever you're dealing with, customer. And this tool is a starting point for that conversation. It's not the ending point, it's a starting point, but it creates new conversations that open up new possibilities, and it helps you to navigate differences. And here's some differences. Speaking of navigating in the red and the blue, you want to point one of those out before you get to that last point? Just one.
Yeah,
Maybe you already did.
Yeah, I kind of did, but I think the idea of and this is just a kind of a graphic as opposed to the data point in this form. It's just the same thing. This is the A, B, C, and D, where Tom is moderately agreeable. He's unselfish, receptive, and supportive. That's his dominant, his need, his drive for dominance, which is that he needs to have control over himself and events and situations, right? So he doesn't have, it's to the left of that, and it's just moderately, just slightly to the left,
so
which means
situationally, my A can go way out.
And it really could. It could also mean there are times when his A can even go to the right, easily go to the right. So the point is that this is the difference that we experienced. Again, we talked a little bit about it was the C, but it was this moderately agreeable. This is a very kind human being. And then you have this person here who's really in between a very assertive and extremely assertive, competitive, aggressive, venturesome, authoritarian, directing, and challenging. This, I can still aspire, and that's what Tom's alluding to with I didn't mean to even bring up the virtue of patience because it becomes confusing. But the virtue of patience comes from my faith, and I don't want to be a jerk.
To make it easier, scroll down. Scroll down. This is where I think what you just said. First of all, when you use the word kind, I want to challenge you because I think you are kind. And kind is a value that you hold. But when it comes to work, your style could easily create the impression that you weren't kind. So it doesn't mean you aren't kind. It means there's something to do and you're not even thinking about how it impacts others. We got to drive. We got to make it. And somebody might say, Byron isn't kind, but that's one of those assumptions we just made and said we want to make fewer of. You are very kind. It's just that kindness isn't what's needed to get ready for this meeting on Thursday. And so you come from your dominant drive. And if we understand that, we'll be careful not to call someone a jerk or unkind or disrespectful just because they differ on the right approach to work. They may be all of those things, but this behavior does not indicate those things.
And this slide actually it came from Tom's mind, and I just simply put it onto this form, the two options we have: to ask what you need or to flex to what they need. And in the situation on Monday, I asked for what I needed. I needed a drive, and Tom acquiesced.
It was
And
absolutely the right thing to do. But you needed to ask. I should have figured it out, but I wasn't. Many times I've noticed that heartbeat and adapted without you asking. But in this case, 10 minutes go by and there's no reason to put you through that. The right thing to do is to flex and for you to ask.
So this is a tool that when you understand the tool, and again, this is not hard to understand the tool. As you can see right here, we're sharing, this is the predictive index, the lion's share, the bulk, the heart of PI. This is something, once you understand this, your conversations are going to be different. Your ability to work in and through others are going to be different. It's going to be better. It's going to be richer. It's going to be fuller. And when you have the understanding, and the people that are on your teams have the understanding that it's okay for them to ask what they need. I need this. Like if you have a team and you have one person on the team that has even lower C, let's say their C's all the way down here, that person is just chomping at the bit to get out of that meeting. And if you have this understanding, this realization, and you have the data, you have this truth, and you say, okay, let's call the person Stan or Smedley. Let's call him Smedley. Smedley, do you have any thoughts? I mean, it looks like you're ready to head out the door. Yeah. Well, here are my thoughts. And then Smedley's ready to go. The point is if without this data, without this information, without this assessment, you don't. All you have really is behavior, and you're reading people, but just purely off of their behavior.
And you're reading it through the lens of how you think
that's right.
People should behave. And we get into trouble. So this isn't either or, it's and both, which is ask for what you need. And sometimes the answer is no. And that's, but you ask graciously and assertively. And something I often say, and I think it would be helpful here. There is a conversation you need to have with your coworkers that probably won't happen unless you initiate it. And it is starting with a question. How can we work better together? And if you have that, you should have that conversation whether you use predictive index or not. But if you put the two profiles and you ask the question, it will be a shorter conversation. But in this conversation, the ground rules are, we're not talking about the issue, who's going to drive. We're using the issue as an example of how we might create misunderstanding and avoiding it. And if you will do that, you will set yourself apart from the crowd. You will be a better manager and you will win.
Absolutely. Well, that's really the whole thing today is we want to help managers win. And really it's by asking that question, how can we work better together? And like Tom said, even if you don't use the predictive index, you can start with that. You can start at least with that question. We were going to kind of do the side-by-side today of the analyzer and collaborator again, but we kind of ran out of time today. But the whole point today was to kind of show that comparison of Tom and I and our PIs. It's really important that this is how we believe we can help managers win, is by using and leveraging the behavioral science within the predictive index. And we also have the other tools that we use. We even have a really, really cool, it's a new tool, but it's an AI tool. It's an AI tool that helps leaders be better coaches. But we love to have the chance to have a conversation with you. And what we'd recommend you do is you go to optimaxtalent.com if you are so led, and then you take the PI assessment. It's free. It doesn't take very long. It's very powerful. As you can tell, we believe in it, but we would be thrilled to meet with you face-to-face over Zoom to go over your results and talk about how we could talk about how, going back to this idea, how, the idea of creating an exciting, clear, effective people strategy, it can make a huge difference in your company. Any thoughts about that, Tom?
Yeah, may I make an offer? Scroll up one. Byron and I had planned to take these two profiles and go through it again. The special offer is today is that if you download the PI, take the PI, and have one coworker. So he talked about a whole team. That's still an option. One coworker take it. We'd be delighted to put your profiles side by side and facilitate a conversation. How can we work better together? No charge, no obligation, because we believe if you do that, you'll say, well, everyone should do that. And then we'll say, yeah, you're our peeps. So we'll offer to do 2 assessments and debrief them together. And this is someone you work with regularly, and you could work well with them, because even if you work well with them, you're missing opportunities to optimize the relationship for better results.
Love it.
Thank you very much for
Excellent.
being here.
And thank you as well for today. And thank you, Tom. And good stuff, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care.